Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. It's 8:05. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. I almost missed coming into the segment here because my good buddy, Judge Napolitano, and I always have so much fun having conversations that I almost missed the transition. Judge Andrew Napolitano is the host of the Judging Freedom Show, and he's joining us right now. Hi, Judge. How you doing?
Well, that's my fault that you almost missed the hard start.
Judge, I'd love to hear more about your book recommendations a little bit later on in this segment. First, I'd like to get to this big news, more on Twittergate. The Twitter Files Part 8 dropped, which showed that the platform directly assisted the U.S. military's influence operations. Twitter docs show that the social media giant directly assisted the U.S. military. What are your thoughts on this story, Judge?
Well, I think it's reprehensible, but it's not illegal and it's not unconstitutional. Twitter is a private company. It doesn't mean we can't criticize them. It doesn't mean we have to patronize them. It doesn't mean that what they do is always right. But it does mean that they can form alliances for whomever they want. Fox News can form an alliance with the Republican National Committee. Twitter can form an alliance with the Democratic National Committee. Now, I don't know, and we don't know if Twitter did this voluntarily or if there was some coercion. We also don't know what the quid pro quo was. Why would Twitter be doing the military's bidding? What did the military do for Twitter? Why is the military, the American military, involved in manipulating public opinion under Donald Trump, of all people? I can't imagine that he knew about it. Who authorized this? Why is the government trying to, it's not a surprise, they've been doing this since the Revolutionary War, manipulate public opinion in order to support the military? All of these are perfectly legitimate questions to be asked. The bitter irony here is all of these misdeeds by Twitter, some of which may be actionable, meaning some of which may form the basis for litigation, will redound to the detriment of the current owner of Twitter. Because when Elon Musk bought Twitter, he bought it liability and all. He bought the consequences for whatever Jack Dorsey and his crew did. So Musk may very well be exposing his own assets to liability by exposing not what he did, but what his predecessor did. It's an odd twist on the law. I can't imagine that there's an indemnification in there that the former owners of Twitter, who are $14 billion richer, are now going to indemnify the current owners of Twitter. It's not the way it works. It works the other way around. So this is the beginning. This is the tip of an iceberg. Honestly, I disbelieved Musk and the New York Post, as I know those folks, when he said that there's much to be revealed here. There is a lot to be revealed. This is a big deal. We need to get to the bottom of it. Who in the military authorized this?
If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson, I'm speaking to Judge Andrew Napolitano. He's the host of the Judging Freedom podcast that you can download on any of your mobile devices. Highly recommend that you do so if you're sitting there chatting with us right now. You can also text the show at 573-319-1586. Now, Judge, in regards to how the U.S. military collaborates with Twitter, I mean, it's not illegal, it's not unconstitutional for them to do so voluntarily, but don't you suspect, Judge, that there was some coercion here, that some kind of implied threat? I mean, when the government does these kinds of things, it's sort of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I mean, not that leftists from San Francisco aren't likely to hop whenever the government asks them for anything, because we know how much the Democrats love government. But in reality, government's relationship with business is a little bit more pointy. I mean, it really is implied that there is the gun in the room is pointed at them, isn't it, Judge?
Well, it's dangerous, Austin. The government likes to use a carrot or a stick, and I can't think of a name for this, something between a carrot and a stick. So the government may very well say, we'll look the other way on this issue, which the DOJ has with you, if you'll help us now. Now, that's not a carrot and it's not a stick. Maybe it's more of a carrot than a stick. Maybe it's both. Because if they don't look the other way, then they apparently do have some beef with the company that they're trying to get involved with. But I wrote a column about this just 3 weeks ago called Slouching Toward Fascism. This is creeping fascism. This is private ownership and government control. I mean, when the government can come into a company and control certain parts of it, that is as fascistic and dangerous and contrary to human freedom as the government taking over the entire company. It doesn't want to take over the entire company. It doesn't know how to run the entire company. It's too expensive for it to do so. Its bureaucrats would be scratching their heads. But certain particular areas that are of interest to the government, mainly how that company can affect public opinion, that the government wants to control. So the cause of action that Elon Musk may be liable for is exposing what the quid pro quo was, what the government said, how they got their nose, how the camel got its nose under the tent, so to speak. And I don't know what the answer is, Austin. But the more there is that symbiotic relationship between the government and the private entity, the more the First Amendment will be applied to the private entity, that First Amendment, which is supposed to be applied to the government. Does the First Amendment restrain the Defense Department? Of course it does. It restrains all government. Can the government get around the First Amendment by coercing a private entity to do what the government can't do, which is to evaluate speech on the basis of its content? Absolutely not. But somebody has to find that out. Somebody has to have the evidence, and somebody has to bring a lawsuit. And then you have to end up before a judge who really believes that the First Amendment means what it says. Like I used to be.
Absolutely, Judge. If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking to Judge Andrew Napolitano. He's the host of the Judging Freedom podcast, which you can download on any of your mobile devices. Judge, the political ramifications of a lot of this, the fallout from this, has been to see a decided turn of many Republicans against the FBI. At least from my anecdotal experience, from what I see of conversations of many Trump supporters online, it's not uncommon to see people who, heretofore had been, big supporters of the Federal Bureau of Investigations now calling for the abolishment of the agency, which, it would give people like you and me hope that perhaps there might be a change in the Republican Party in the policy in regards to the views of the FBI. But maybe it's just as I grow older, I grow more cynical, and I wonder if maybe that you don't feel the same way that any possibility of change, that Republicans, if they were to take control of the government, full control of the government, would simply descend into the same partisan exercise as before, meaning that when the Republican Party were to eventually take control of the government, they would no longer want to abolish the FBI, because what they really want is just to control these agencies of government. I have a phrase that I like to trot out sometimes, Judge, that angers pretty much everyone except libertarians when I say that conservatives love local cops and hate federal cops. Liberals love federal cops and hate local cops. What kind of cops do libertarians love? I think you know the answer.
The answer to that would be private cops.
Great answer, Judge. Great answer. Great answer. But isn't that the case though?
Yes. Well, your one-liner is not only funny, it's prescient, and it's true. And I agree 100% with what you just said about the Republicans. They just want an FBI that they can control. And by the way, the FBI knows more about the Republicans than the Republicans do about the FBI, which is one of the reasons the FBI budget and the NSA budget and the CIA budget and fill in the blank budget of of entities in the government that engage in illegal, unconstitutional domestic surveillance, all those budgets keep increasing. So I don't hold any hope in Republicans abolishing the FBI, but I do agree that it should be abolished. It has become a domestic surveillance entity. It is not sanctioned at all under the Constitution. In Madison's framework, there were only two federal statutes, one prohibiting debasing the money supply and one prohibiting treason, and both are defined in the Constitution so that Congress couldn't expand the definitions. And Madison wanted, and the Constitution originally was written in order to promote that all criminal behavior would be addressed by the states. And some states would be a little bit more aggressive, and some states would be less aggressive, and you could vote with your feet and live in an environment that you chose. But with a federal police department, the FBI, and now the DHS, which is 10 times the size, 10 times the size of the FBI, we're stuck with this, and I don't see it changing without a serious revolution in government. All these growths in government came about with Republican help. My friend, somebody you like, and he admires your work and mine, Andy Biggs, the Republican congressman from Arizona, who's challenging Kevin McCarthy, points out that Kevin McCarthy has, and this is not a blast Kevin McCarthy show, but the leader of the Republicans in the House of Representatives, the presumptive new, and maybe not, Lord, Speaker of the House, voted for and supports every increase in government that has come down the pike since he's been in the Congress. The Thomas Masseys and Rand Pauls and sometimes Mike Lees are the exception to the Republican Party rather than the rule. They are not the people to rely on if you want to shrink the government. Ron Paul had a great piece at LouRockwell.com either earlier this week or late last week about why the FBI should be abolished. I couldn't agree with him more.
Judge, if you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show, I'm speaking to Judge Andrew Napolitano, host of the Judging Freedom podcast. Now, Judge, it seems to me, in a basis of history, one of the best ways to get, a good history lesson is to read your books, which I highly recommend, especially Theodore and Woodrow, if you want to look at the history of American presidents and progressive policies. A terrific book that you can get in all fine bookstores as well as Amazon.com. Also, Dred Scott's Revenge, one of my favorites. The book that got me into Judge Napolitano was A Nation of Sheep, Lies the Government Told You. Definitely, if you want to start your libertarian journey, you can't go wrong with the Judge's books. But Judge, at all times, what I learned from your books and what I've learned from, being sort of your protege for a short time, and from my study of history is that at all times that sincere friends of liberty have always been very scarce, very rare. And that, in looking and judging and analyzing even the presidents that we look at with admiration, for example, Thomas Jefferson this morning, when you analyze Thomas Jefferson's rhetoric, his rhetoric is quite libertarian. His policies not so much. Very much the same thing with Ronald Reagan as another example. As I'm going through this book this morning with my friends who are watching us online, I can find bones to pick with Calvin Coolidge and with Grover Cleveland, the most libertarian presidents that we might say. Is it the case, Judge, and this is something I've been wrestling with, is it the case that once you gain power, like a Thomas Jefferson or a Calvin Coolidge or a Grover Cleveland, once you have given that amount of power, that the realities of power and of the limited capabilities of what a president really can do with their power, necessarily precludes one from advancing the kind of lofty rhetoric that people like Ronald Reagan or Thomas Jefferson or Calvin Coolidge had before they were presidents, and that once they are ensconced with that power, that they are corrupted by necessity of it, but also incapable of changing a system that is bigger than even they are. Judge, your thoughts on this?
Well, yes and no. I mean, for the most part, I agree with you. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely, Lord Acton. The government draws those who suffer from libido dominandi, as St. Thomas Aquinas said, the lust to dominate, whether it's to dominate the government or whether it's to dominate the people that the government governs. The Louisiana Purchase, for example, Napoleon needed cash. Jefferson had the cash, and he just decided to buy what is now 1/3 of the United States. Totally unconstitutional. Absolutely no basis for it whatsoever, whether done by treaty, which is how it was done, or by any other means. It's sad because I love Jefferson so much, but when you dig deep, you do see things that we would condemn today. It really takes an almost saint-like person, or a person totally devoted to the primacy of the individual over the state, like Ron Paul, to eschew, to shy away from, to reject the levers of power that are available to you once you do get elected. I often wonder how I would have reacted when tempted by those levels of power. My libertarian friends used to chide me. Well, you worked for the government for 8 years. Well, I didn't. The government paid my salary, but I worked for the Constitution. And the same government that paid my salary often hated me because of my interpretations of the Constitution. Would I have interpreted the Constitution the same way if I had been in the executive branch? I like to think yes, but power is such an aphrodisiac that it can tempt and seduce and control even people like Thomas Jefferson. Reagan, I think, was just a big-hearted, basically Western libertarian who surrounded himself with Bushies, and as in George H.W., and let those people run the government, and only got involved when they went to extremes. I hate to say that, but
No, it's such a
it's
shame
true,
because
and
it
it's
is
an
true.
inescapable truism.
It is, Judge, and it's a shame because I do think that, his rhetoric was probably the most libertarian since Thomas Jefferson, but his behavior and practice and the expansion of government was another. But he was faced with the Soviet Union, with communism, and with those threats. So, one wonders if making in collapsing communism in such a way was the right move. But then you're faced with the reality of, well, if communism fails on its own as an economic system, as we believe, then it wasn't necessary to spend so much because communism would have collapsed on its own accords. So we're caught in all these sort of twisting contradictions, Judge. And like you, I feel the same way. I don't know how I would react if I were placed into that scenario. I'd like to believe that I would do the right thing. But if the truism is true that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, then I can't hold myself up as a demigod or a god. I'm not. I'm a human, and I'm prone to the same temptations as everyone else.
Let me
It's
throw out my two favorite one-liners from Reagan. One he said and one he didn't say. So the one he said that everybody knows is the nine most dangerous words in the English language are, "Hi, I'm from the government. I'm here to help you." But my favorite really is from his first inaugural address when he said, "Let me remind you that the states formed the federal government and not the other way around." Now, here's what he didn't say, and what I would have begged him to say if I'd been the scrivener. I would have said, "And the powers that the states gave to the federal government, they can take back." He didn't say it. Would have been the perfect time for him to have inserted that in his inaugural address. He didn't call me. He didn't ask me. I didn't know he was going to say it, so I was too late to the game.
Judge, were you briefly considered for the Supreme Court by President Trump?
Twice. No, I'm talking about Reagan in the inaugural, but yes, twice by President Trump for the seat that went to Neil Gorsuch, whom I recommended to the president, and for the seat that went to Brett Kavanaugh.
Do you think that the reason why he ultimately didn't pick you is because you would not be as compliant?
Um, I think he was surrounded by people who thought a sitting federal judge would be easier to confirm, and that they'd be confronted with my 14,000 appearances on Fox that they'd have to defend. some of which were fomented by the host of this show.
Well, I do apologize. I guess I can't really apologize, Judge. It was the two most miraculous, wonderful years of my life, and to
Same
see
here.
to see you out there, um, you know, doing segments and interviews that I had helped produce and had a hand in producing. Of course, there was a larger team. It wasn't just me. But to see you out there fighting for freedom in those 2 years during the rise of the Tea Party tidal wave, getting people like Sarah Palin to go out on national television and support Congressman Ron Paul's Audit the Fed bill, bringing together what I believe was the best opportunity for liberty in the modern age with the Tea Party, and you being at the head of it in the zenith, and me just being a sort of footnote to it, being a small footnote of it. It was a great honor, Judge. And
It was. I remember when the Occupy Wall Street was going on, and you and one of the other producers went down to Occupy Wall Street and found two progressives down there that were really libertarians. And I don't think they had slept or showered or shaved in a week, and we put them on air anyway.
Zuccotti Park, I do remember it. Yes, yes. We brought all of our libertarian friends down there and dropped off. And they had an anarchist bookstore, and we dropped off book copies of Murray Rothbard's.
Right. Those were great days.
They were, Judge. But hopefully there are great days ahead of us. I mean, there are still opportunities to be had. Dark times right now, but usually it's darkest just before dawn. I think the Christmas season, Judge, is a time for us not only to reflect back on the year, but, in the season of lights, it's, also a season of miracles. And, I believe, Judge, that the possibility for hope and redemption exists. And I believe that you do too.
Yes.
And in your recent column where you wrote about the miracle of Christmas, hope and redemption and salvation comes through Jesus Christ. Would you like to share that with us?
If you believe that Jesus Christ is true God and true man, then and as God could do anything, could have slain his tormentors by an act of will, then the greatest act of rejecting the levers of power, to go back to where we were before, is Christ on the cross. That is the greatest act of humility in the history of the world, the creator of the world allowing his creatures to execute him in order to demonstrate the depth of his love. Of course, this all comes about by the miracle of the virgin birth, which we celebrate on Sunday. God coming into the Blessed Virgin Mary to produce his son as a human being. My column this week is called What If Christmas is Real? It's one of those what if, in which I bring the reader into the basic Christianity and then say, well, what about all these people that think that the government is God? And when they think the government is God, what does it do? It destroys free will. And it makes us subservient to the government because we're afraid to challenge the government because then it'll take away the goodies that it's giving us. So I couldn't resist that. Some of my traditional Catholic friends might not like that, but I couldn't resist poking my elbow into the ribs of the government on Christmas.
Judge, you're a good friend. You're an inspiration and someone who I will admire endlessly until the end of my days. I just want to say to you, Merry Christmas, and I love you, friend. Thank you for your time today.
All right, Merry Christmas to you. I love you as well, Austin, and Merry Christmas to you and your beautiful bride. I hope you guys have a fabulous, fabulous holiday weekend.
Thank you very much, Judge. Have a wonderful and Merry Christmas. Take care.
Thank you.
Good stuff. What do you think? Judge Andrew Napolitano, host of the Judging Freedom podcast. Download his podcast on any of your mobile devices. And do me a favor today. All I ask is for one little Christmas gift from you. Totally free, won't cost you a thing. Visit my friends over at Lear Capital. Sign up for a free informational packet at learaustin.com. If you loved that interview with the judge, you can help me out and say thank you by visiting learaustin.com. Give them your information. They'll send you an info packet about their gold and silver packages. No obligation to buy. Just get more information. Maybe in the future you might say to yourself, hey, listen, I'd like to put a little bit of my money into gold. You could do that. Visit learaustin.com, get their free information packet. Do that as a favor to me if you liked that interview with the judge. And we'll be back with more about why your favorite presidents sucked when we get back on the Wake Up America show at Wake Up.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today. Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
A retired Navy SEAL who became famous nearly 10 years ago after coming out as transgender announced that he is detransitioning after and called on Americans to, quote, wake up about how transgender health services are hurting children. Joining me now to discuss is a transgender individual herself, Sarah Higdon, who's joining us now on camera. Good morning, Sarah. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning, Austin. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So would you like to set up this story for our audience?
Yeah. So if the audience doesn't know, so Chris Beck, I don't know what, I just call Chris Chief. That's what most people just call him. And was going by Kristen Beck for a long time. I think transitioned to Kristen Beck in like the early, like 2013, 2012 timeframe. and yeah, former Navy SEAL, has testified in front of Congress, was actually like very popular around that time. I remember first seeing Chris and almost being like, I saw Chris as an inspiration, because it was kind of like you see yourself and you see somebody else stepping out of the mold and doing something. I wouldn't say that Chris's transition had anything to do with my transition, because I don't want people to think that like, and I don't ever want Chris to think that helped me transition. But Chris was always a great person. I still admire him for what he's doing now. You know, it takes a lot of guts, because for the last 4 or 5 years, Chris has kind of been out of the limelight until he did a Rogan interview about 2 months ago. Kind of been out of the limelight and just living life, helping veterans. And so now we've talked about it behind the scenes, and there's just a need for people to come out there and speak about what's happening. And if Chris is saying that he felt pressured into this because he was getting CNN interviews, he was getting all this media attention, if he felt pressured into this, then just think about what happens to children when they're getting pressured into this.
If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson, I'm speaking to transgender, veteran, Catholic, and liberty activist Sarah Higdon right now on the line. I'm also
got liberty.
Yeah, got liberty. Nice shirt there, Sarah. We're also joined in studio by my friend Edie Vogel. She is a Catholic conservative, and she's an activist herself, and she's active in local politics, as well as a former town councilwoman here from Jefferson City, Missouri. We're talking about a former Navy SEAL, a veteran, who by the name of Chris. What's Chris's last name? I'm sorry, Sarah.
Beck. Chris Beck.
Chris Beck, who had transitioned to female, and now is announced they're detransitioning back to male. What was, I think, interesting in this story was that Chris had talked about all of the pressure that was put on him to transition in the first place. Can you talk about that, Sarah?
So, yeah, I know he had done a lot. Like I said, he testified in front of Congress. He had CNN interviews. He said a lot of people had been kind of pushing him towards this. He got a book deal. So the book is Lady Valor. He had a documentary made about him, which I think was Lady Valor as well. And so very popular, like the first really popular person to come out as trans. And the fact that he was this big, brawny Navy SEAL made it even bigger of a story. This big masculine dude coming out as trans was huge. And then I know Chris had some activism, and I disagreed with some of his activism because he disagreed completely with like the Trump trans ban and everything like that. And there was a lot of very much activists and so some points in times I've always seen Chris as being more on the left of things. And it seems like over the years, he's become very much a libertarian mindset, kind of being red pilled because now he's seeing what's been taking place behind the scenes. And I do know that Chris stopped taking stopped taking estrogen about 7 years ago. And it said that in the story as well. And I know because he was having health complications because of it. And so it wasn't working for him. So he still was trans, but was not taking testosterone or estrogen because it was not good for his body.
We're talking to Sarah Higdon. She's a transgender Catholic military veteran herself. And we're talking about Navy SEAL, who's now announced that she felt pressured to transgender. I guess it's Sarah, it's hard for me to get the pronouns right sometimes on this one, because when someone announces that they're detransitioning, then do we refer to them by their masculine pronouns, right? So, I mean, so it's Chris.
Yeah. Now. Yeah. And so I think that's why I said I've not talked to Chris lately. I know I'm having a hard time as well, even just having this conversation, because I've never really known him. I've only known him as Kristen, right, and as she, and so like I said, this kind of caught me for a loop because like I said, I didn't see this coming. Because Chris, he's always been this big advocate. Like I said, we've had conversations behind the scenes, just a couple of times. He said he's told me before that he's a fan of my work, so it's really interesting, and I'm glad somebody like Chris is speaking out, because somebody who had that much influence early on in the shift to this trans movement is able to come back and say, wait a second, this is what's really going on. This is what happened to me, and you guys saw it all happen. This is the first person that you've seen it happen in front of your eyes, that they came out, they transitioned, like literally went from one day, and the Rogan interview is great, went from one day working at the Pentagon, as Chris, and then just the next day walking in a dress and heels wearing a wig and as Kristen. And it was like, but even the story, I didn't even know, like the story said, even with the VA doctors, after like a 30-minute interview, were like, yeah, you're probably trans. Here's the hormones, type thing, which I agree with informed consent for adults, but you have to be informed, not like this might, as a person, you should still be going and getting the mental evaluations and stuff like that, the personal responsibility of that. But at the end of the day, it's like, I can't believe the VA did it back in 2013 before it was even allowed in the military. How can you not
believe that? I wasn't even in the military, and I can totally believe that the VA could do that. If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson, I'm speaking to Sarah Higdon, and in studio we're also joined by Edie Vogel. This is a fascinating conversation about a transgender Navy SEAL who's now detransitioning and talking about how they were pressured to transition in the first place. Sarah, as someone, you recently transitioned yourself, made the actual surgical transition. But I'd like to talk about detransitioning, because I imagine you probably did a little bit of research on that. What is the process now that Chris essentially is going to have to undergo in order to detransition?
Well, like I said earlier, for Chris, it's not probably going to be a lot, because like I said, Chris hasn't been on estrogen for 7 years. I don't think he went through with full surgery or anything like that. So it's really just kind of changing his name back and then switching back into, living however he wants. I assume he's still going to live pretty similar life to what he's living right now, but So if
that's the case, it would not be as difficult as someone like for yourself who has made a much more permanent sort of a change.
No, if I was to go and detransition, I would actually have to be on testosterone supplements for the rest of my life, because my body doesn't naturally produce testosterone anymore. Where Chris's would, if you've had the surgery, then it's the same with a young female that's had a hysterectomy. Their body's not going to produce estrogen anymore the same way. So they would have to take estrogen supplements for the rest of their lives if they detransition.
Wow, that's. Boy, that's quite chilling, to hear something like that. It must, and you knew that full well going into your transition, Sarah. I mean, it must have been quite frightening, because, I mean, in essence, what you've done, is permanent, right?
Absolutely. And that's it's absolutely permanent. I mean, because that's one thing that's becoming an issue is, we're getting these kids so young, transitioning them so young that their bodies are already permanently altered. So it's like Big Pharma gets money up front, and then they get money for the rest of their lives after they've even realized after they've made these, this mistake, and it shouldn't have happened. But they're paying money to detransition. They're probably going to be on Big Pharma, patient for the rest of their lives. And I do want to mention with Chris though too, you got to remember, again, coming out in like 2012, 2013, it wasn't this big thing, and so there wasn't as much information about this as there is now. We live in an age where you can Google what happens with transition. I mean, even Chris would almost be like an experiment. Like their transition was very much experimental at the time, because it wasn't until about 2016 that it really spiked. And so now like I said, for him to be coming out, I don't blame him at all for, what he's doing. I'm actually, like I said, I'm proud that he's out here speaking with us, like all the detransitioners that we see, like Chloe Cole and stuff like that are speaking out as well. And I'm we have a lot of those on our team, like over at Trans Against Groomers and Gays Against Groomers. They're all on our team. I mean, we have detransitioners that are working, specifically with us. And because the issue is that the problem with a lot of the trans community on the left is once you've detransitioned, they write you off and they push you away, as to where they still need medical care just the same way as everybody else. And, just because they've detransitioned doesn't mean that their dysphoria stops or anything like that. So we still have to take care of these, detransitioners, and we still have to listen to them, because they tell a story. They tell the other side of the story that
the left wants
nobody's
to suppress
hearing.
them, for sure. Sarah, this is probably a really difficult question here, but one of our listeners did send it in and asked, does Sarah have any regrets?
No, I mean, I don't have any regrets at this point in time. Absolutely not. And that's not even a question. I am fully happy with my transition at this point in time. It scares me to see some people come out 7-8 years later, though. I don't think I was manipulated into anything, but it's like 8 years down the road, could I possibly feel differently? At this point in time, I don't think so. I think but it's a possibility. But I don't think so.
That's scary. Sarah, you're very brave to come out here and talk like that about your personal experiences in this. We appreciate you very much.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Austin. I appreciate you as well.
Oh, thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go?
Right now, just watch. I got some news coming up in the next couple of days. Got some events coming up in Wisconsin in January, events in Pennsylvania in March, and I got some just speaking events for the next year. And just follow me. Go to my website, sarahhigdon.com. You can go to my Twitter and Instagram, which are both sarahhigdon_. And you can find all my stuff there and just watch for some of the events that I'm doing around the country.
We'll do that. Sarah Higdon, Catholic, transgender, military, former military, and friend of the show. Sarah, thank you for your time today. We appreciate your courage.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hi, I'm Stephanie, Austin's wife. I want to thank you all for watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us.
I believe in liberty, and I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you?
I want to ask you today to join Peterson's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Peterson's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and make your pledge today.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion, delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table, or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
Hello, I'm George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself, or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. line. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me pups build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning. It's 8:03, and you're listening and watching to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Happy Tuesday. Joining me in studio, sticking around, is our good friend, Edie Vogel. Hi, Edie.
Morning.
Good morning. And joining us now, live on camera, all the way from Louisiana, the lovely Camellia Peterson. Good morning, CJ.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks. Well, the live stream could be functioning a little bit better today, but we are here. We're working, and I look
He's
at
a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
He is a mean one, Mr. Grinch. Yes. CJ, thanks so much for coming in today. What are you doing down in Louisiana?
I am down here doing my, it's becoming an annual pre-Christmas Cajun trip, but I'm down here visiting Jamie Marie Pope, and we went down and we had her Christmas party Saturday night, and then us girls went to New Orleans for an afternoon and had some fun there. And then yesterday toured the Louisiana State Capitol because we have to do that, and it was really cool. It was fun to hear some of the stories about that and the history. So, and went up high on the observation deck and looked for a very, very tall Capitol. Lot different than ours. It's very high.
Yes, I've seen that Capitol. You're right. It's tall. It's like a high rise.
We're talking to Camellia Peterson right now on the live stream.
Yeah, it's just like a big spire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can text the show today at 573-319-1586. All right, let's get to the news here. I saw this story yesterday. I was like, this is perfect for Camellia. 3 Missouri cities were listed toward the top in a recent survey of sinful cities. Wallet Hub published a survey last week measuring 182 American cities on a sin index, measuring things such as anger, greed, vices, lust, and vanity.
Good Lord.
The fact that I'm here in Jefferson City ought to put the vain thing up to the very, very top, but it didn't rank. Which Missouri cities were the most sinful, Camellia?
Well, topping the list at, I believe, number 2 in the nation, actually, even, is St. Louis.
Oh, okay.
Number 2 in the nation. Now, see, that was one of the ones that you guessed.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. All right, continue.
Yeah. And so falling below that a little ways is Kansas City, and then Springfield.
Okay. All right.
You guessed 2 out of 3.
Right.
Honestly.
Right.
Now, what was the number 1 most sinful city?
It is Sin City.
Absolutely, yeah. Of course, Las Vegas. Edie, have you ever partied in Las Vegas?
Yeah, I've been to but it's been a long, long time ago.
Were you a dancer?
No. But I went to some of those shows.
Where they took off their clothes?
Uh-huh. Well, no, I probably just went to some of those where the men, like Wayne.
The men take off their shirts.
No, Wayne Newton.
Dance around.
And,
Thunder Down Under.
Yeah. No, not that.
Chippendales.
Yeah. No, it wasn't even that. Listen, I'm talking about last time I was in Vegas, probably 40 years ago,
Did you see Elvis?
No.
Okay. I guess he died in the 70s. I feel like because I'm 40 years ago, I feel like it's like the 1980s, but it's not.
Yeah, well, you weren't even born.
I know. I wasn't even born.
No.
All right, so St. Louis placed at the very top of the list. Why?
Well, they look at all of these different factors, like how did you decide, which of these different things? So the seven deadly sins: anger and hatred, excesses and vices, greed, lust, vanity, laziness. So St. Louis, I think, was partially up there because of the per capita murder rate.
I have to agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But also, when they look at some of these things, they're looking at statistics. And so I was trying to see, for example, some of the criteria that they use for like laziness. The way they calculated that was they looked at share of adults that are not exercising, or average daily time spent watching TV, high school dropout rate. So for vanity, and I'd have to look again to see where St. Louis is on that. But for example, vanity is like tanning salons per capita, or the Google search index for top 5 plastic surgeries. So, and of course, like lust is the adult entertainment establishments, or if your city is searching for triple X entertainment, that'll put you on the radar too.
So we're kind of outing ourselves. So porn searches are putting St. Louis up near the top. So naughty.
Well,
what was what?
I was going to say I would think that it's kind of across the river there in Illinois.
Oh, don't try and put this on Illinois.
No. Well, that's where everybody always would kind of.
Where the strip clubs are.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to
East St. Louis? Yeah.
Have you ever been to a strip club, Edie?
No.
Never.
No. Why would I just? Gee whiz.
Camellia, have you ever been to a strip club?
No, Austin, I have not been to a
Thank you.
club.
Me either.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
Liar! I don't believe it.
I wouldn't believe that
It's
either.
a sin.
Venial sin.
It's just a venial thing.
Venial sin. A little sin.
We've got the good Catholic in here right now. Sure we know. Okay, what was the other factor that you were going to bring up there after the porn searches?
I don't know, but I can tell you that St. Louis, that they're first in the number one vice is, the number one sin is anger and hatred.
See, I would have thought it been murder, but okay.
And so,
they probably go together, don't you think?
Yeah, good point.
Right, 12th in jealousy, and also first in excesses and vices. These people be drinking and smoking and everything else too much. A lot of vices.
We do like drinking.
But you know what? Here's the thing. This is a positive out of here.
I don't know. Let's hear it.
82nd in greed. So, for all of their faults, St. Louisans are not greedy. Do you know which is the number one in the nation for greed?
What?
Which city do you think is number one in the nation for greed?
Washington,
Chicago.
D.C.
Chicago.
Washington. Yeah. Which one is it? Is it Chicago or
Washington,
D.C.?
D.C.
It's D.C.
Right. That makes sense. That makes
D.C.
sense.
Oh, obviously.
They're all.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson. We're joined in studio by Edie Vogel. She is a candidate for the Jefferson City Council. Were you excited to see, Camellia, that Edie's running for office here again?
I am excited to see that. I think that's great. I think that my favorite thing about Edie so far, and this is why I know that she's got that inner libertarian streak in her, is when the city said, "You have a trash hauler," and she was like, "I'm not paying for that."
That's right.
She refuses to pay for the trash hauler in the city of Jefferson, which is like a mandate, like a requirement that you have to do it, and she doesn't do it because you shouldn't have to.
You can't force me to buy something that's free. Now I will, if it was a city utility, that would be a different story. But it's a private enterprise, and I can tell you that my family business pays $14,000 a year for trash service. Okay, so I take my one bag of trash to my family dumpster at my family business.
At the Coca-Cola bottling.
That's right. And I don't think I am breaking the bank of Republic Trash Company by doing that.
I agree. Jamie Marie Pope over in the live stream says, "I'd vote for her based on her badass tattoo choices."
No, yeah.
Is it a sin to get a tattoo?
I don't think so. No. I have two.
I'm pretty sure the Bible says something about that, doesn't it, Camellia?
Well, Well, anyway.
Thou shalt not get thyself tattooed in connection with the
that's
funeral
not in the
rites.
Bible.
Yes, it is. Wait,
The 11th commandment.
Wait a minute. Hold on here. Camellia, can you pull up your King James for us here real quick?
Oh boy. It's not going
here.
to say tattoo in the Bible, though.
Wait. Yes, it
like,
does.
that's not the word it's
No,
going to
that's
use.
not the word either.
Hold on. Wait a minute here. Tattoo, Bible verse. Why does the Bible forbid tattoos? The writers of the Hebrew Bible forbade tattooing. Leviticus 19:28. You shall not make gashes in your flesh for the dead or incise any marks on yourself. Edie.
Oh, I'm not incised with marks for the dead. I've got 2 religious tattoos.
2 religious tattoos. Okay, well, as long as the tattoos for Jesus.
And the other ones are selling something you drink.
Okay, there you go. Selling.
Oh, I was wondering if the Coke tattoo was the religious tattoo.
No.
The religion ones are on my wrist.
The religious tattoo is not the tattoo of the Diet Coke.
The Diet Coke's on my ankle.
On her ankle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
All right. Elizabeth Fanning Press texted in and said that we should brand you as the voice of reason in Jeff City.
Oh, that's a nice compliment. Thank you.
Put up some billboards and some signage and say, voice of reason in Jefferson City. Yeah, we're going to do what we can to get you elected. Edie.
Yeah, write that down. Voice of reason.
Voice of reason
okay.
Jefferson City.
And if she does away with the meter maids, if she outlaws the meter maids, then she will have Scott Fawn's vote.
That's right. That's right.
You got to promise to get rid of the meter maids,
Yeah.
Edie. All right. We'll know that Edie has officially gone libertarian when we get her not only into the dispensary, but when we get her to enjoy a delicious gummy.
Oh, you all.
Gummy bear.
That's funny.
We'll know that she's done it. Should she? Pepsi is better than Coke, says Buddy Mansour. Boo. We stand Coca-Cola here on the morning show.
I've always said it's your choice, you know.
Hey, Camellia, on the whole, like the cities in Missouri that are very sinful, Springfield made the list on that one. 62 on the list. I thought it would have been a little bit higher because of how terrible Springfield has become in recent years. It's a den of vice and sin, I would think. But you live closer down there technically. But I guess you spend more time in St. Louis these days, don't you?
I do spend more time in St. Louis, although it does seem I'm never in one place for very long. But I mean, I don't know. I didn't spend a whole lot of time in Springfield. It's about an hour from my spot down there. But that is, I suppose, it's a college town. Although, I don't know. So there's, I'm not sure why it ranked at 62. 62 is not all that high, but it's up there.
Camellia, is there anything else that you think our listeners should know before we let you go?
I just hope that you all have wonderful holidays, regardless of what you celebrate. And Jamie Marie Pope and I were talking about this last night, and kind of all of sometimes the Grinchy stuff that goes on in the background of Christmas, and people argue about what's the reason for the season. And really, I think what a lot of people hold dear about these holidays is the ritual and the tradition of getting together with your family and the things that you do. And those are the things as we get, later in life that we remember. And so just remember that it's not about, what tradition came from where, or, whether it's perfectly correct or not, as long as you're doing something with the people you love and giving of yourself.
Well, that's a very heartwarming message, Camellia, and we appreciate that very much. But unfortunately, that is incorrect. Jesus is the reason for the season, and you are going to hell. Merry Christmas.
Sorry.
We'll be back. All right. Thank you so much to Camellia Peterson. Send us a text if you like that interview. 573-319-1586. When we get back.
Were you exposed to hazardous materials while serving in the military and have an illness or condition as a result?
If so, you may be eligible for VA benefits and services.
Whether you need health care or want to file a disability compensation claim related to military exposures, VA is here to help.
Visit va.gov/military-exposures to learn more and apply today.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive. And if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
If I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors, what would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? You can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
We wish you a freedom Christmas. We wish you a freedom Christmas. We wish you a freedom Christmas and a liberty New Year. Socialists and commies may try to convince you that the holiday's all about free stuff. But let's be honest, we all know whose wallet Santa's gifts are coming out of. There ain't no such thing as a free stocking. Santa is the only guy with a big white beard promising free stuff that we want anything to do with this holiday. And if you don't believe, you don't receive. It's a capitalist, consumerist holiday, and it's time for a Santa-sized stimulus. Get your free market merch at the AP for Liberty shop today and stuff your socialist sisters' stockings full of capitalist cheer. Ho, 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 ho!
Good morning, it's 7:22. It's time to rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. It's Family Friday, so we've got my beautiful, smoking hot, redheaded libertarian wife, Stephanie Peterson, in the house. How you doing, Steffi?
Doing lovely. How are you?
All You've been excited to talk about this topic since like a week ago, haven't you?
Yeah, when you first brought it up, I was like, oh, this makes me so mad and gets under my skin whenever people do this.
Alrighty, well, we're going to talk about it right now. Psychologists have started to examine why people engage in sad fishing on the internet. Do you want to kind of explain this phenomenon for our listeners, Stephanie?
Absolutely. All right, so sad fishing, let's break it down. It's literally fishing for sympathy by posting sad images or posts. And so that's basically what it is. It's just people posting photos of themselves like crying or just writing like, oh my God, ... with a sad face.
Yeah, they post like their woe is me. They're online. They're always posting about like their troubles and their problems.
They're
and
being
things like
overly dramatic, and what they want is comments.
that. They want attention. Yes, and we know a lot of people like this on our timeline that we see
do.
on a daily basis. It's always like, it's always woe is me. It's all and the funny thing is too is that with some of these people it really is just TMI, right? It's just like you and I are I would say are very sensitive people, right? In terms of emotional sensitivity.
We have feelings.
Yeah.
We have our own problems.
Well, yeah, but like we're not like cold, uncaring individuals, right? When our friends or family members are in trouble or need help or things like that, we're the kind of people that you should feel free to reach out to us and things like that. But but there becomes a point when what you're doing is you are oversharing. You're sharing to the entire world all of your woes, and I don't want to be accused of being heartless or cruel or callous here. Maybe I will be anyway, but it doesn't matter. But the thing is that at some point it's kind of like it's too much. It's you're posting way too much about your problems. You need to keep that kind of stuff like not to yourself, but you need to keep that within your family or your circle of friends or things like that, and not be posting it out for everybody to see.
Right. So I do have some tips here.
Let's hear about it.
For
because you are a therapist.
Yeah. So for the people who do sad fish, write in a journal. See if you can first just get your thoughts out in a journal.
Mm-hmm.
And if you still feel compelled to get other people's opinions, be clear about that online rather than being more secretive and manipulative about it.
Where it's kind of like sad fishing, but it's like vague posting at the same time,
Right. If you really need help or you really need prayers, ask for it.
Yeah.
Say, you know what? I'm feeling really low right now. Like, honestly.
And that's fine. People do that. Matt Unruh was doing that yesterday, I think, or something like that. And that's totally fine.
Yeah. And honestly, when my mom had cancer during your campaign, I know I talked to you on the phone because you were doing a fundraising call. And I said, I want to tell you, my mom has cancer.
Mm-hmm.
This is really getting me down. And I remember on a stream that night, you told everyone my mom had cancer and to send her good wishes and all that. And that was so uplifting.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even tell you how much that affected us positively.
Yeah.
And it's okay to ask for things like that.
Tolly Owens says that there are some things meant for your close circle. I agree. Chris Morrill says, just say, hey, I have a gun you can borrow, and that usually shuts them up.
Oh, no. As a therapist, we don't want to do that because here's the thing. These people, they are struggling. They really are. They may have self-esteem issues. They may have depression.
But part of it is like, one of the things is it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf kind of a thing. When you do it all the time, like people start to take you less seriously.
They do. And that's where bullying comes in.
Right.
Because a lot of teens do it. And that actually brings bullies to their posts, writing more negative comments, actually giving them responses
Making
they
it
don't
worse.
want to see.
Yeah.
And it also attracts groomers. Talking about groomers in our society.
Yeah, we are going to get to that.
Adult men or women will come to these posts of kids and be like, hey, I'm an adult mentor. Talk to me. I can help you through this.
Yeah, for sure. I was reading this in a Wall Street Journal article from 2019. So this has been picking up over the last several years. But they say that influencers have used the word anxiety 3 times more so far this year than they did in all of 2016.
Yes.
So it's been on the upswing, and more than 6 million posts on Instagram reference hashtag mental health awareness.
Yeah, they get 7 to 10 times more engagement on posts about mental health.
Yes,
Influencers
that was
do.
another thing that we found later is that influencers see an increase of 7 to 10 times the level of engagement when posting about mental health issues than they do with more mundane posts. As a result, some are accused of what is known as, quote, sad fishing, in which people exaggerate their issues for personal gain. But it's kind of like one of the things is that we have this friend of ours who posts online whenever she gets attacked, right? So like whenever somebody says anything unkind about her, She posts about it and then posts all of the intimate details of what happened, and like, who they are, and like tries to dox them sometimes and things like that.
Right.
And it's like, and it's kind of like, if you don't want people to talk about this, like, why are you posting more about it? Because it's like this person obviously wants this, whatever this is, to kind of go away and to not be talked about.
Absolutely. So that's
But
the
they're talking
opposite
about it. They're like
of
going
what
out
they
there and they're
want.
talking about it. It's like, shut up. Still don't go out there and post more about it. People just don't understand. I mean,
And here's the
you're
thing.
creating a problem.
People give them more of a reward by them doing this because they're actually commenting
Yes.
and posting on it and,
Yeah.
getting in the fight. Like, oh, we love you, don't back down. Here's the thing for people who are noticing sad fishing from their friends, either ignore it or write to that person privately.
Yes.
And say, hey, I noticed you were posting about this. Let's talk about it.
Yes.
Another thing you can do is you can send them some mental health resources.
Mhm.
Say, hey, there's a good mental health community called 7cups.com. It's volunteer run, and you can talk about whatever concerns you have, and people are going to support you.
Anna Marie over in the live stream says that she went to a concert last night. The opening band was like, raise your hand if you have depression. Yeah, depression, woo, mental health problems. Well, the thing is that we're kind of like with TikTok and Instagram and all these influencers, it's kind of like it's a coveted status. If you're, what do they call it, neurodivergent?
Yes, neurodivergent. That's the new term nowadays to say that your brain is different than others.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, these influencers, like Kendall Jenner, for example, she talked about her battle with acne and how bad it's been. And you know what she was doing? She was trying to get people to pay for these acne products. It was a sponsorship.
For sure. Just like my sponsorship with...
It's getting hot in here.
You won't find me sad fishing. No, oh no. This is called happy fishing.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Didi's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake, yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes, you like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bush. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bush blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
Do you have any real-world experience?
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
I can't wait to introduce my next guest to you. His name's David Harsanyi. He's a writer at The Federalist, and he's joining us for his very first time on the show this morning. Good morning, David. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today. Grateful for your time.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. We've been having this discussion this morning about Kanye West, statements that he's made about, Jewish conspiracies to keep him down. We sort of beat that to death. But what we haven't talked about here is the sort of the left's double standard when it comes to Kanye's remarks. Your latest column there, or the column that I read here, I guess is from October, where you talk about the left's double standard here when it comes to anti-Semitism. Would you like to state your case?
Sure. Well, I think I actually wrote something yesterday as well, kind of clarifying my argument about this. And it's not just a double standard. It's that the left likes to take one side of the anti-Semitism problem, which I don't think is ideologically driven. I think far left and far right are typically embracing it, and then they make the case that it's simply being, propelled by one side of the ideological divide. I think they overstate the case of anti-Semitism. I'm not saying Kanye is not an anti-Semite or Fuentes is not anti-Semitic. I'm just saying that they overstate the problem as far as a political problem, right? There's always been anti-Semitism out there. So, they ignore Ilhan Omar, or they ignore the decades-long relationship between many people in Congress and Farrakhan, or they ignore, Al Sharpton, who, when I was growing up was anti-Semite number one where I lived, who has a show, who has a show on and gets paychecks from NBC. So I don't want to overstate the problem, but I think that for them it's just a political cudgel. It's not anything that they're really trying to deal with or wrestle with in any substantive way.
Now, in terms of how the left views that, philosophically, I mean, the double standard is sort of baked in, if you will. So my understanding of it, David, is that the left is aware of their double standards, right? It's not as if they're doing this and they're unaware of what's going on. They know for a fact what they're doing. It's just that they maintain this double standard because they see the left, or they see their opponents as uniquely evil, and that anyone who is on their side needs to be protected. Is that pretty much your estimate of it as well?
Yeah. I mean, they believe, or they've convinced themselves, that democracy, which just means stuff they want, is under there's an existential threat to it. So they'll make the case that one party rule will save democracy. It doesn't even make sense, right? But this is their case, and it's any means necessary to protect that power. I'll give you a great example. 2 days ago, or yesterday maybe, the New York Times ran a big column about how anti-Semitism was being normalized by Michelle Goldberg, who lives in New York. And she did not mention the 800 attacks in her city, a very left-leaning city, by minorities predominantly, on Hasidic Jews and religious Jews in Brooklyn and elsewhere. I mean, to ignore that and not even mention it in a column about anti-Semitism just shows you that it's just this partisan talking point that they like to pull out to bash the opposition over their heads. And it's not to excuse, Donald Trump or his meeting with Kanye or anything like that. It's just it's just a fact.
Do you believe Donald Trump when he said he had no idea who Fuentes was?
Well, there are three possibilities. One, he didn't know, and that like this Nazi guy can get a meeting with the former president, presidential campaign. That's not good. He did know that. That's not good. And meeting with Kanye himself just shows how unserious Donald Trump is most of the time. And I'm not one of these reflexive, like, never Trumpers or anything like that. I think he did some good things, but I'm just not sure why anyone wants or needs to go through that circus again with his just simply bad decision making. When, if you're a conservative, do you think Ron DeSantis would ever have met with Fuentes? It seems unlikely to me.
If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson, I'm speaking to David Harsanyi. He's a writer at The Federalist, and we're talking about Donald Trump's meeting with Kanye West and Nick Fuentes from last week, as well as the left's double standard on anti-Semitism. Now, David, I saw that you had written a book recently that was titled Eurotrash, and the subheading of it is Why America Must Reject the Failed Ideas of a Dying Continent. And I'll say that while I haven't had a chance to read your book yet, one of my main gripes that I've had recently with this national movement within the Republican Party, they call themselves national conservatives, is that it reminds me very much of more of a European Toryism than it does of an American conservatism, where American conservatism to me is much more associated with libertarianism, with the Wild West, with cowboys and with gold and with God and guns. Whereas this new national conservative movement strikes me as much more about God and country and, about, king and country, rather than, the sort of American conservatism that was more associated with, like, the Tea Party, for example. You've written recently as well about the national conservative movement, that they perhaps, have a higher opinion of themselves and what they might be able to actually accomplish in terms of electoral success.
Yeah, I mean, I think that movement is a dead end, though I will say that it's factional. So there are different kinds of people within that movement that have different ideas. And frankly, sometimes it's hard for me to understand. I'm not sure they have a coherent, cohesive, agenda yet. But in general, seems to me that they think they've tripped over this new idea, but they're just a new kind of Buchananism. We tried this in the early 90s in a much more socially conservative time, with many more people in unions and all of that. And even then it was unsuccessful. I'm not sure why they think it's going to be successful politically. Ideologically, I have huge problems with it, because I don't think the idea that you're going to compete with progressives and Democrats in government programs and welfare programs and technocratic job creation and stuff like that, you're never going to beat them at that game. You shouldn't even try, because it's a bad idea. But even if, even in trying to get votes, it's not going to work. The sort of protectionist mindset, I think what they're doing is chasing working class voters. There's nothing wrong with working class voters or trying to get working class voters, and there's nothing wrong with being working class. But it's a shrinking demographic, while you have these suburbs which are growing in places like Arizona and Nevada, and you're leaving those people behind because your message does not appeal to them. So, I mean, I'm a fusionist, basically, and I think that is the most idealistic, most American way, political ideology, and the most successful political ideology that perhaps ever existed in America, or at least in modern times, post-Civil War. And to throw that away and mock it for something, to go back to the late 1800s and be a mercantilist type, it just doesn't make sense to me. And Republicans have lost 3 elections now with these types of candidates chasing these types of issues. So it's been a pretty big failure. So that's basically my case on national conservatism.
It almost seems as if the national conservatives see a greater enemy in libertarians than they do in social democrats. Quite frequently, I will see writings by these national conservatives where they embrace Marxists and they put Marxists at the head of their magazines while they denounce the libertarian right and claiming that we are responsible for progressive victories here in the United States. How would you respond to that, David?
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that, and I think there's oftentimes these people are just statists who believe in God, and when it comes to economics, when it comes to other ideas, basically, believe in the things that progressives believe in. I would say that they often blame capitalism for the reason, for churches shrinking, for people being immoral, for things like that. I don't think there's any evidence for that. I don't think poor people are more moral, or people who live under authoritarian regimes are more moral. I also actually think that the welfare state was one of the leading reasons why families have been broken up in this country. I think the state crowds out community and charity, and by crowding out the local church or the local charity, they destroy those communities. I'm not saying that progress and the internet and the things that we haven't done some of that as well, but the state has never in history. I always ask these people to give me an example of where this works, and they'll talk about Hungary, right? Where the average per household makes $10,000 less than the average household in Mississippi, our poorest state. Just because you're a tourist in Europe and you see a nice city doesn't mean that the people elsewhere are living these wonderfully moral and, wealthy lives. They are not. So I guess that's what I would say to them. I have more to say, but that would be the crux of it.
But David, it is inherently American that there is something that that has caught hold to the public. It used to be exclusively a domain of the left, but now it's very much a domain of the right as well. To hate rich people and to see them, being wealthy and being a billionaire is something inherently immoral. What do you think has caused this change? Because it used to be when we would have these fights over capitalism, we were fighting the left, but now we're fighting Marco Rubio when it comes to capitalism. They see it as destructive to the family. They see free markets as inherently immoral. How do we respond to these kinds of attacks on capitalism from the right?
Well, it's difficult because populism is basically an emotional argument, and no one, and when people think of the economy as a zero-sum proposition, which most people probably do, they see someone who has a lot and they wonder why they don't have more, and they look at those people with some amount of envy. That hasn't really been an American trait. We have not been a class-conscious society. So I don't like that that's being injected into our discussions on the right, because I think in America, most people believe in meritocracy, or did, and they believe they can move from class to class. Immigrants here become richer. We have far more movement and than Europeans, for instance. And the more the state intrudes, the less dynamic the economy is, things like that, the less movement you'll see. I always like with Marco Rubio, who frankly just chases whatever's, whatever. I remember him as a Tea Party type. He just chases whatever's trendy on the right. He's not going to be he will talk about manufacturing jobs and romanticize like lunch pail, 70s and stuff like that. But he's not going to send his kids to a factory to work there, right? It's always for the proles and the others who they want to live that way. I think Americans want their kids to do better than they did. I sure do. And so I find the emotional appeal of that argument lacking. But, we have to admit that it does have some resonance with people who struggle over, in Rust Belt cities where creative, I hate to throw around these libertarian terms, but we're creative destruction.
No, don't worry. It's a safe place for these big terms. Go ahead.
A safe space, yeah.
Yeah.
So, that is how the economy works, and you can't, you'll never be able to change the rules of progress in the economy. So,
right. But they despise that, right? So this is why so many on the right see libertarians as the enemy, because they claim that it is the job of government to protect American jobs and to ensure that iPhones aren't being manufactured in sweatshops in China, because they claim that those manufacturing jobs need to be returned to the American people where they claim that they rightfully belong. And I mean, how can you certainly can't run for office, David, on a platform of saying I'm a globalist and I believe in allowing sweatshops in China to manufacture your iPhones at the expense of the American worker. I mean, hell of a sell, David.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think sweatshops aren't a bad right. In certain
Yes, same here, and that's why they hate us.
But I have to say, China presents a unique situation in that they do have slave labor, right? So I think that China is just to say that trade with China should be, and I'm basically don't even believe in any kind of like trade barriers with countries, but I think when you have a slave state, it does present a unique actual slave state, not sweatshops, or low salaried workers, but actual slaves. That obviously presents a moral problem. But yeah, in general, I agree with you. No one's going to, but this has always been the case, so let's save manufacturing jobs, but let's save, I don't, they romanticize the manufacturing. They think if we're not making things here, we're losing, when in fact, this is how we grow the economy. This is how we grow wealth. This is how people live better lives. But it is interesting, and it's a big topic, and I don't have any answers, this thing where life keeps getting better for most people, but most people are unhappier, right? And so there's a lot of that going on, and our politics reflect that. I am very pessimistic about the future because I think the right is moving towards a more statist, authoritarian mindset, especially younger people. I see it in. I was at CPAC a few years ago, and some guy from First Things magazine, which is this socially conservative Catholic magazine, basically, I think it's Catholic. And he said, one of the big problems in society is we have too many choices and too much freedom. And the whole place started clapping. This is the same place I like 5 years ago, it would have been the opposite with Tea Party type. So it is concerning.
Yeah, I did. I drove them bonkers on Twitter one day when I said that national conservatism is just Bernie Sanders, but it goes to church on Sunday. And some people, and a lot of them were like, you know what? You're right. Absolutely. And that's why you saw Tucker Carlson embracing Elizabeth Warren's economic plan. That's why you see, people like Ron DeSantis going and speaking at those conferences. And I think it's because, they see this as in vogue. Sort of like what Marco Rubio did. But like you said in your column, if freedom works and if Tea Party conservatism was on the rise, Ron DeSantis would probably be going and speaking at those conferences. So I guess my final question there for you, David, is thoughts on Ron DeSantis?
I know he showed up at those at the NatCon conference, but I feel like that's just him. And don't get me wrong, I think there are some aspects of both his personality and the way he deals with corporations and things like that have great appeal to that faction among conservatives. But also, people move to Florida because they have really low taxes and a really low regulatory environment, and the things that they like. They're not going there because he's yelling at Disney. And by the way, I think that as people with who are more libertarian, I consider myself like a classical liberal because I do have problems with modern libertarians in some ways, which we can get into another time. But
yes,
but the thing is, yeah, okay. But the thing is, he basically embraces kind of a Reagan-esque, policy of fusionism, basically. He's oh yeah, that's what I want to say. So like when he goes after corporations for crony capitalism, where this is another debate I have with these NatCon types, is like, you want more government, but really these corporations have power because of the state, not because there isn't enough state. You know what I'm saying? They have, like the vaccine thing, without the state imposing itself on citizens, that whole debate wouldn't have happened. You would have done whatever you wanted to most of the time. So anyway, so I think Ron DeSantis has a lot of features or policy positions that can bring together probably more conservatives than any other candidate I can think of right now. Maybe Youngkin's that kind of candidate too.
David, conversations like these, and for many of our listeners, is like great sex. We appreciate it very much. We want to definitely have you back on the program.
Were you exposed to hazardous materials while serving in the military and have an illness or condition as a result?
If so, you may be eligible for VA benefits and services.
Whether you need health care or want to file a disability compensation claim related to military exposures, VA is here to help.
Visit va.gov/military-exposures to learn more and apply today.
if there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun. Thank you.
Had enough yet? Do facts no longer matter? Are lies to be encouraged instead of punished? This is not our inheritance. If truth no longer matters, we will not remain free for long. This is our generation's challenge, to defend our founders' hope that we the people could self-govern if we defend our right to get the facts. And right now, we're building the only defense of free people have, the facts on every politician, every position they held, every statement they've made, every vote they've made, and any cash they've taken. It's the real history on those now pandering for your vote. There are hundreds of young people building our defense right now, and they need your help. We all have our passions, but as our ancestors knew, when events become so foul they threaten us all, we must stand and defend each other. Please, have our backs. Join us at votesmart.org.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? You can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
We wish you a freedom Christmas. We wish you a freedom Christmas. We wish you a freedom Christmas and a liberty New Year. Socialists and commies may try to convince you that the holiday's all about free stuff. But let's be honest, we all know whose wallet Santa's gifts are coming out of. There ain't no such thing as a free stocking. Santa is the only guy with a big white beard promising free stuff that we want anything to do with this holiday. And if you don't believe, you don't receive. It's a capitalist, consumerist holiday, and it's time for a Santa-sized stimulus. Get your free market merch at the AP for Liberty shop today and stuff your socialist sisters' stockings full of capitalist cheer. Ho, 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 ho!
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. Happy Friday. Thanks so much for tuning into the Wake Up America show. It's Family Friday. I'm joined in studio live now by my beautiful wife, Stephanie Peterson. Give her a round of applause. And since it's Family Friday, let's add 3 P's. 3P. 1, 2, 3P. This is my brother, Justin Peterson. Good morning, Justin.
Good morning.
Give him a round of applause. Nice to have you here, JP.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on the program today. You had a bone to pick with us about our discussion about the whole sad fishing topic, Justin. you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I'm going to fight you.
All right, let's hear it.
It's okay.
No, I mean, here's the deal. Like, I get the arguments, But on the inverse of that is also this idea about toxic positivity, right? So you have this idea about people who are like super happy all the time. And it's like, ugh, that's not real. You're not being real. So they're always like, everything's great. Everything's always wonderful. I think sad fishing, I mean, in the way you guys describe it in terms of like for clout, that's obviously an issue. But I also want to like just put out there that we're living in an unprecedented time of loneliness. People are very lonely, and especially around the holidays. This is not a happy time of year for a lot of people. This is actually a very sad time. So, it can be very depressing around the holidays if, for example, your grandparents are gone, your parents are gone, maybe you don't have children. I mean, so I see both sides of the argument, and I do absolutely understand where the argument of like, for clout, that is a problem. But I guess I get
they're
really
incentivized, right? So it's like,
yeah.
The thing is with the cloud, it's like you get 7 to 10 more times interaction when you sad fish, when you post, like, and we get people posting all kinds of like, you see them online, and it's just the most trivial crap, Justin.
Right.
It's like, and which I understand, it's like, people have problems and things like that, but like there is such a thing as TMI, right? I mean, we're
sure, but also look for excuse me, look for patterns. Right. If this is a person who doesn't do that and all of a sudden they are doing it, like Stephanie said, that's a moment to like reach out and be like, hey, this person usually is posting things of a general tenor that are, upbeat and happy. And if they're like, oh, this is sad, it's like, oh, this is out of character for this person to post something like that. So what's going on? But like, even Eeyore
seriously at first until you have to take it seriously at first until you realize what that person's motives really are.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think too, it's like even Eeyore gets to come to the party.
Mm-hmm.
So people aren't by nature, some people are not happy people. And, they didn't say to Eeyore, okay, Eeyore, you got to be happy. No, they were like, okay, Eeyore, come along. You can hang out with us,
And that's not what we're saying. We're not saying people have to be happy all the time. I was saying there needs to be a term called happy fishing because some people, like you said, toxic positivity, they're always posting, yay, me, look at me. I won this award. I did this great volunteer
Look how beautiful my wife is. Look how awesome my life is with my new show. And
it sickens people.
I guess it's like, for me, it's like
people.
gatekeeping. It's like gatekeeping for me. It's like, I'm going to get to tell you what you can or you can't post. And I just always have a problem with that.
But I mean, like, one of our favorite skits, Justin, from SNL, Debbie Downer. Right? You know what I'm talking about?
But hey,
they cannot say anything.
Of course.
Nice about
but guess
ever.
what? Debbie got to still go to breakfast at Disneyland with everybody. She was still a part of the party,
God.
So, she wasn't maybe the happy one, but it was like, yeah, I don't know.
If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson, it's Family Friday. I've got my lovely wife, Stephanie Peterson, in here in the studio with me right now, as well as my brother, Justin Peterson, who's joining us live on stream. Justin, I brought you on here to talk about late yesterday, the House of Representatives passed a bill. It passed out of the Senate, passed out of the House. We're expecting the President of the United States to sign it. This is the Respect for Marriage Act, and essentially this would protect gay married couples across the United States, protect their legal contracts with one another in such a way as to prevent the states from outlawing it or from interfering with these contracts that are already laid out. Your thoughts on this bill?
I mean, I'm wondering, the necessity of it came about because of Roe v. Wade, is from what I'm understanding, right?
So I'll briefly explain this. Here's the Reader's Digest version. After Roe versus Wade was overturned, Justice Clarence Thomas immediately turned around and said, well, Obergefell was wrongly decided as well. And Senator Ted Cruz came out and said essentially the same thing. The conservative movement started, posting online about how we need to talk about pushing against gay marriage and getting Obergefell overturned. And so there were, the Democrats in Congress alongside 13 Republicans, including Missouri Senator Roy Blunt, banded together to pass this Respect for Marriage Act to prevent something like that from happening.
Is it obviously, how the government is, right? So they're always like inventing dragons that don't exist. And it's like, in order to have a job.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I'm always like, well, okay, so we had ruled that it was unconstitutional, right? Through Obergefell, right? Because they were saying it was based on sex discrimination. So it was saying you can't discriminate against the basis of sex, which is what gay marriage was, right?
The new bill also includes interracial marriage as well.
Yeah, I was really interested by that because I didn't think that was at risk.
All of our rights are always at risk. I think it's whenever somebody is dismissive and is like, oh, nobody's trying to take those rights away. It reminds when the conservatives say that, they're like, nobody's trying to stop gay marriage. marriage. Nobody's trying to stop interracial marriage. I'm like, bullshit. Just how the left says, nobody's trying to take your guns. Nobody's trying to take your guns. Absolutely, there
When
are
they
people.
say they're not, they are.
Yeah, when they say that they're not, they probably are. You know.
Well, I mean, again, it's just the fascination with what people do in the privacy of their own homes. It's like, and how they live their private lives.
Why conservatives are so obsessed with butt sex, I will never understand. But
my other thing is this, like, the idea of gay marriage is a conservative idea.
Oh, dude,
it's not a
that
liberal.
makes them so angry when I say
marriage.
that. Yeah, I said that,
conservative.
yeah, I stole that from Christopher Hitchens when I read it in one of his books, where he says that gay marriage represents homosexuals becoming more socially conservative and adopting conservative values. When I said that on Timcast like 2 times ago that I was on, I mean, the conservatives lost their minds because they can't.
Right, because what's the alternative? You know what the alternative is polyamory, right? This idea of like, we're going to have 3 and 4 and 5 girlfriends, boyfriends. I mean, queer theory and queer sexuality is not based on marriage and family orientation and stability of a domestic life. It rejects those things completely, because the whole project has been to deconstruct sexual relationships.
So what do you think about the institution of gay marriage, Justin? I mean, like it's a relatively new phenomenon in the United States. I don't know about like throughout ancient history or the classical history or the West. I mean, pre-Christian history, for all we know, it could have been, fairly common. But I mean, what's your opinion on the institution as such as it is, since it does go against, typical queer theory?
Well, I mean, the idea of it in terms of why it came about was, at least in my understanding, is that because there were so many legal and governmental restrictions that were not able to be passed on to a same-sex partner. So, for example, inheritances or even hospital visitations. That was the thing that always killed me. It's like you could be with someone for 25 years and then go into a hospital and they'd be like, are you next of kin? Are you relative? No, I'm their partner. Well, sorry, we can't give you access to this person while they're dying. I mean, like anybody with a heart that has any compassion for human beings could say that's not correct. That's wrong. The thing about marriage on the queer side is that they look at it as heteronormative, right? To be getting gay married. It's like, why would you want to go into a heteronormative gay or, straight institution? So, I mean, I think, but again, I have many gay friends who are married with children and they have this, I get Christmas cards, right? For my gay friends with kids. And they're like, here's our Christmas card. And I'm like, this is like a picture of domestic bliss, right? So, I just don't understand. Like you said, I don't understand well, I do understand it because it's authoritarianism at the end of the day. It's about controlling other people and telling what they can do and how they can live their lives. Which,
I mean, I hear some of these people in recent weeks, praising the views of the Taliban, right? Because of how socially conservative the Taliban are. And I mean, we're essentially talking about the American Taliban. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson, I'm AP. I'm joined in studio by my wife, Stephanie Peterson, and we're speaking to my brother, Justin Peterson. It's Family Friday, so we're having a little bit of a Peterson family gathering. We're talking about the news of the day. Stephanie, before I said anything, you look like you wanted to say something before I...
Yeah, well, what came to mind was a lot of religious people don't believe in gay people anyway.
Right.
They think that if you're gay, you can just change your behaviors and do
Correct.
conversion therapy. So it's like they're in denial anyway.
Right.
So
I mean,
why would they believe in marriage between same-sex partners?
Well,
'Cause
and
they don't
why
even
would you
believe in
want
gay
people that don't share your religious beliefs to believe the way you do? I'm so sick of this. I'm so effing, it makes me want to literally rage quit life.
Explain.
Well, I'm on a diet, so you can't have donuts. Like, why does my life affect your diet? Eat all, eat all the vegetables you want to, live in your garden and your, ecological happiness. Leave me alone. Stop trying to make me live according to the strictures of your religious beliefs. Your own religion doesn't agree with itself.
Right.
Why don't the Baptists believe what the Lutherans believe, what the Episcopalians believe, what the such and such believe?
Maybe that's what we need to do.
Some unity in your Christian beliefs, and then I'll listen to what you have to say. Yeah. Don't get me started.
Oh, dude, we're getting you started, baby. It's a great. This is great stuff. I think it's really
triggering stuff.
Absolutely. So here's the thing, Justin, and I'm going to segue topics just a little bit, but I think one of the reasons why, unfortunately, the battle for marriage equality is now so challenging is because so many of the people who espouse what you call queer theory are out there making your community look bad, look very
Correct.
bad. As a matter of
Bad
fact,
actors.
bad
Mhm.
actors. So we're seeing. So for example, this video, which I haven't had a chance to play just yet this morning, from Veritas Project. Did you have a chance to watch this? This dean of students at this private school in Chicago.
It really, yeah. I
You watched it?
try to limit because it makes me sad fish.
Yeah.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
a good coping skill. Try not to look at negative things when you are feeling sad.
Well, but
Look at more positive
so here's the thing. I'll just explain it to you because I don't want to get demonetized on YouTube just yet. Maybe I will anyway. But the a dean of students at a private school in Chicago is talking about them passing around sex toys to minors and teaching them how to use them, bringing in drag
Oh,
queens.
wow. That's sex education now?
That's sex education now in a private school in Chicago. And, he's talking about how he has a drag queen sitting there and they're teaching them the difference between spitting on it and lube and all that stuff. And, we'll leave those. That's as far as we'll go with the explanations of this. But Justin, things like that don't make it easy for people like myself who are deeply embedded in the conservative movement as a sort of libertarian plant. It makes my life a hell of a lot harder fighting for marriage equality when things like that are happening.
Oh, 1000%. It makes it hard to be, when people see you and then they, again, because of how this is all shaking out, then they what's the word I'm looking for? They sort of have a heuristic, right? Where they see you and they go, oh, you're a such and such identity marker. So then you must be like everyone else.
Right.
You must be, your immutable characteristics make you exactly who you are. The issue that the way they were framing that argument was that they said, well, the kids are going to see stuff online that's, they're just going to see it online. Well, they're also going to see beheadings online, but we don't do beheadings in school.
That's where parents need to step in and actually monitor their child's online activity.
Yeah, conservatives do not apply the same standards to violence that they do to sexuality. One of our new friends over in the live stream, her name is Hikaru. She is. Yeah, Hikaru, she's one of our she's transgender, she's openly transgender. She was making some comments about how she loves hearing voices like Justin's on this topic because, it's nice to hear some people who are actually, I guess, level-headed, middle of the road on this, because frequently we always only hear from the radicals of any side, right? But I mean, when you see like that Veritas Project report, when you see videos like that, that makes me that's when I start to side with the conservatives, because I'm like, hey, listen, these kinds of things. I've always been someone who believes that the rights of children and the rights of adults are separate. That there's some overlap, but that children's rights are essentially held in escrow by either parents or the government until they reach the age of attainment. But leftists and some libertarians keep trying to push the envelope at a lower and lower age of consent. And my argument for that is because they are attempting to cover up for their beliefs and their desires that would see them put in prison if they were acted upon, Justin. I mean, we're talking about predators, and I don't understand why the left seems so intent on protecting predators, because I think the natural inclination is to believe that it's because they're predators themselves.
I think it has to do with pushing this Overton window, because it's this idea of what's acceptable, right? And that's always how the left works. The ratchet only moves in one direction, right? So the right is never, sorry y'all, it's never in a active mode. It's always in a reactive mode to what the left is doing. They are never acting on their own. They're always reacting to something that the left is pulling us, and the right is just going, oh no, this way. So they're never in thesis. They're always in antithesis, right? If we're looking at the Hegelian dialectic, it's always the left pushing, and then everyone going, what are you doing? I mean, if you told me 20 years ago, I'd been in a gay bar in Lawrence, Kansas, or Kansas City or Iowa, and I saw children in the gay bar, I would have been like, what? Why the hell are there children in this gay bar? What the hell are there
Right,
children
that shouldn't be allowed.
And now it's like normal, because that's how it works. Like you push something, and then the immediate thing to do is push it to the very far extreme, and then accuse the people who say no to it as being bigoted, racist, homophobic, transphobic, whatever, so that they're immediately labeled as, well, you're just this. You're just this.
People just send the message the wrong way. It's just like
Yep.
libertarians. They're like, hey, join us, and then you see like stoners on camera doing podcasts. And then people are like, no, I don't want to be part of that. But that's not really what
I mean,
libertarianism
no,
is.
for sure. Quite literally, like the one of the reasons that I like set up my show the way that this is that like I'm openly a libertarian, right? Philosophically a libertarian, but you're not going to see me doing drugs on camera. Very
Right.
very rarely do I swear, which I did a little bit earlier on this program. But I mean, it's I've got my button for a reason, right?
You're giving a good name to the libertarians.
Yeah, I want to try and make us look good to the
Mm-hmm.
community because there are a lot of them who are making us look bad. And PR is real. If you have a political viewpoint and things like that, you should want your absolute best ambassadors to be the ones who are going out there. But what's unfortunate is that it seems as if like the absolute worst of the ambassadors of each philosophy are the ones who rise to the top and are put out there as representatives.
Well, let me come back to this idea about gay marriage. Insofar as what you're saying, the gay marriage thing happened really largely because the presentation, let's say, in media changed. In other words, like you get a show like Will and Grace on TV, which shows gay people as being funny every day, your next door neighbor. And when someone is not as funny and you like to watch them on TV and whatever, it softens your sort of opinion of somebody, and you go, oh, well, they're just like me. They're just like who I am.
Forming emotional connections with these people you see.
And what's going on today is not about emotional connection. It's about disassociation with the other, calling someone names, giving them, that doesn't build bridges. That doesn't build connection. In other words, how can I be your ally if you call me names? How can I be your ally in your fight for whatever it is that you're fighting for if you're calling me, a cis-het white male? I'm not going to be on your side. I'm not going to be on your side.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson, you can send us a text message for free at 573-319-1586. Alternatively, if you'd like to have a message sent to the show that you'd like read on air, you can send us a super chat, and that is a way to make a small donation to the program and to help us to build and thrive and to get support. And it's you can do it over there on YouTube. If this is your first time watching the show this morning, do me a favor. Make sure that you click like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell notification icon so that you can get a notification whenever we go live. Right now, I'm joined in studio by my wife, Stephanie Peterson, who's here with me, as well as my brother, Justin Peterson, who's live with us on camera from Boston. Justin, so just to kind of put a bow on this topic here, we talked about the institution of gay marriage, and we talked about the groomers online, and we've discussed a little bit about sad fishing online. Give us your thoughts, just overall. Where do you see like the LGBT movement headed? Will there be eventually a split of the movement from people who are who will actively oppose the kinds of things that we're seeing in like, this grooming that's going on? Or do you think that the LGBT movement, because of the threat that comes from conservatism, do you see it staying in solidarity despite all of the, I guess, immoral, hedonistic behavior that's going on at this time?
I don't think it's sustainable. When I look at the future, I don't think it's sustainable for the entire community to stay as coalesced as it is. I mean, when I think about what's going on here in Boston, our Pride parade was literally canceled. Like they don't do it anymore because of the infighting. I mean,
wow.
You and I both know that intersectionality eventually eats everything. It's like a snake eating its tail. Eventually, it eats everything and it consumes everything. So I do not believe that these ideologies are generative. I don't believe that anything that these ideas do generate things. I think they aim to destroy and to dismantle and to disrupt. Those are not generative ideas. So I can't imagine that it will be a future focused success story when it comes to the unification of this community. I don't even like to use the word community because it somehow indicates that we all agree or we're all the same. There's only one thing that unites gay people. I'll let your imagination run wild. And that's about it, right? We come from different religious backgrounds. There are gay Christians. There are Muslim Christians. There are gay
Muslims.
Yeah, gay Muslims. There's gay, there's gay conservatives. There's gay libertarians. There's gay. We're not a monolith. We're not a monolith. And I think that this sort of what I'm coming to be seen as called force teaming. I don't know if you've heard that expression yet, where you bring forced teamed with a group of people. And it's like, well, you're just in this group. And it's like, no, I'm not. Like I didn't sign up for this.
Force teaming.
It's like putting all redheads together. It's like all we have in common is that we have red hair.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Well, when I hear
Exactly.
force teaming, I think that's some kind of like sex act.
Well, but like, there's gay lumberjacks. Okay, this idea that we're all the same, that we're all mincing queens, and that we're all like going to Judy Garland concerts and making out in the bathroom.
Justin, you go to Judy Garland. Don't be talking about yourself there, Judy Garland fan.
Gotta work it a little bit. Gotta work it a little bit. No,
if they brought Judy Garland back in AI form or whatever, some hologram, you'd go to that concert.
We all would go to see her.
Where's the lie? I mean, and you would probably go too, Austin. So shut up.
Drag me along to something like that. All right, Justin Peterson, my brother, all the way from Boston. We can't wait to see you soon here, brother.
Love you.
Family Friday. Let's make it a thing.
Family
I love
Friday.
it.
Let's make it a thing. If you want to do that on the stream, make sure that you give us a like and comment. Say yes to Family Friday. We'd love to hear from that. Justin, about an hour, a little bit less than from an hour from now, Stephanie and I are going to do a gift exchange on the show around 8:30 a.m., 9:30 your time. So definitely come back and watch it because I think it's going to be fun.
Well, I got to go do my workout now because I gotta stay buff so I can stay hot.
That's right. Self-care.
Okay, brother. All right. Don't force team me. I'll see you a little bit later. Love you, brother.
Love you too. Bye.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.